Muy buenos días con todos. Espero que me logren escuchar bien. Pueden confirmar en el chat. Sé que están conectados desde varias partes del Perú, de Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia. Pueden escribir en el chat, por favor, si me logran escuchar bien. Vamos a dar inicio a nuestro webinar, que en esta ocasión será un taller, un workshop, para aprender un poco más algunas estrategias sobre el IELTS, especialmente para los postulantes que van a dar este examen próximamente, ¿no? Este mes o el próximo mes, a fin de postular a becas de estudio. Bien, tenemos unas respuestas en el chat, excelente. Bien, me presento, yo soy Ruth Yance, soy representante país de la asociación Erasmus Mundus. Esta asociación reúne a ex becarios como yo, pero también a becarios que actualmente están estudiando una maestría en Europa. ¿Bien? Erasmus, ¿no? Ya hemos escuchado hablar probablemente de Erasmus cuando pensamos en intercambios de un semestre en el pregrado. Sin embargo, también ofrece maestrías completas de 2 años. Y les voy a hablar un poco, ¿no? de esas maestrías hoy, tomando unos 10 minutos de la presentación de Laura Pisani, ¿okay? Que ya está también conectada. Bien. La Comisión Europea financia estos programas Erasmus de maestría, que son particularmente, digamos, especiales porque en nuestro contexto, pensemos en Perú, ¿no? Cuando pensamos en las maestrías, pensamos en estudiar 2 años en Perú, ¿verdad? Sin embargo, estas maestrías Erasmus se realizan en 4 universidades o 3 universidades diferentes de Europa. Es decir, durante los 2 años de estudio yo tengo que moverme de un país a otro país para estudiar en una universidad diferente. ¿Okay? Entonces son más o menos 3 universidades por las que pasaré o 4 universidades. Entonces es algo particularmente, ¿no? Diferente. En cuanto a los grados académicos, después de terminar la maestría, a veces se recibe doble titulación y al regresar a Perú son reconocidas por SUNEDO, ¿no? Entonces, sí, quisieran dedicarse a la docencia, por ejemplo, ¿no? No habría problema porque estos grados académicos son reconocidos, ya que tenemos un tratado así país de reconocimiento de grados, ¿no? Con la apostilla de la Haya. Bien, ahora veamos los beneficios. ¿Cuáles son los beneficios de las maestrías Erasmus? Rápidamente. Durante 2 años de estudio, los becarios reciben un estipendio de 1.400 euros, que es suficiente dinero para poder, ¿no? Costear alimentación, hospedaje y otros gastos relacionados. Y no tener que trabajar, es decir, durante esos 2 años nos podemos enfocar solamente a eh, estudiar. También reciben un seguro médico y si es que una de las universidades participantes es una universidad privada, por ejemplo, o una pública que cobre, ¿no? digamos, unas tasas académicas de matrícula o pensión, estas también están pagadas directamente por el consorcio de la maestría. Es decir, hay 0 gastos de matrículas en la universidad. Y también se ofrecen algunos cursos de idiomas, ¿no? Especialmente si van, digamos, a países como Polonia, Finlandia, ¿no? Pueden y quieren interactuar un poco más con la gente local, pueden tomar esos cursos básicos que son gratuitos también para los becarios. Entonces, como les había comentado, las maestrías Erasmus son eh, muy especiales porque tienen una movilidad obligatoria, es decir, pasamos por 3 países y por ello uno de los requisitos fundamentales es el nivel de inglés, ¿no? Es el test de inglés, porque las clases serán en inglés, nuestros compañeros serán de otras latitudes, digamos de África, de Asia. Entonces, la única forma de comunicarnos con ellos, inclusive también con nuestros profesores, es a través de el inglés. Y algo más, mientras más alto sea mi nivel de inglés, el mejor desempeño académico podré tener, ¿no? Porque entenderé mejor las clases, podré leer y hacer las tareas, digamos, los ensayos, los trabajos, inclusive ya la disertación, ¿no? La tesis, también la debo redactar en inglés. Entonces, si ahora tengo un nivel intermedio, siempre mi meta es tener un nivel avanzado y ir perfeccionando. ¿Ok? Otros requisitos para postular, además de los idiomas, es la carta de motivación en inglés, el CV Europass, ¿no? Que es el currículo que se acepta en Europa. Es fácil de llenar. Hay una página en que ingresamos los datos y descargamos en este formato. También hay que juntar cartas de recomendación de algún profesor o empleador. ¿Okay? Importante, cartas de recomendación. Y hay también, ¿no? El diploma de bachiller y los certificados de estudios. Esos documentos son importantes. Es decir, si ustedes ya terminaron, ya son egresados y cuentan con esos documentos, pueden postular. Si están aún en el cuarto año, aún no, porque no son bachilleres, digamos, pero bueno, ya nos estamos preparando para las próximas convocatorias. ¿Okay? Estos dos documentos sí son traducidos por un traductor certificado. Nosotros, ustedes mismos pueden hacer la carta de motivación, el CV y las cartas de recomendación. Bien. Pensemos en la aplicación. ¿Cuánto demora el proceso de postulación? Normalmente las convocatorias abren en agosto, ahora están abiertas, ¿no? Van hasta diciembre, algunas veces hasta enero, ya depende de la maestría. Estamos ahora con aplicaciones abiertas. Hay documentos que hay que preparar claramente, ¿no? Con los que ya les mostré, y sobre todo ¿no? El certificado de inglés también, ¿no? Inscribirnos en los exámenes y prepararnos. Luego hay un periodo en el que se evalúan las candidaturas, las aplicaciones, y más o menos en marzo y abril se anuncian los resultados. También hay un periodo de unos meses para preparar la visa y otros documentos para salir de Perú. Y en septiembre y octubre del próximo año inician las clases. Entonces veamos que hay como un periodo de un año, ¿no? Que toma este proceso de aplicación. ¿Ya? Para tenerlo en cuenta si van a postular este año y el próximo año. Ahora rápidamente les muestro el catálogo de becas disponibles y también las voy a compartir en el chat. ¿Okay? Tenemos aquí este enlace. Está en el chat. Bien. Entonces, una vez que hagan clic a este catálogo, van a ver 214 maestrías, ¿no? Es un montón. Todas ellas tienen opción a becas. Claro que van a encontrar entre los, ¿no? compañeros de la maestría, algunos que sí están pagando completamente estas maestrías, pero algunos están con becas, ¿no? Y el número de becas por maestría oscila entre 15 más o menos, 10 a 15 becas. Y son, claro, altamente competitivas. No solo competimos con países de la región, ¿no? Pensemos en Ecuador, Colombia, México, Brasil, digamos, pero también competimos con estudiantes de África, de Asia, por esas becas. Que yo motivo a los estudiantes peruanos a postular. Tal vez una de las barreras o dificultades que encuentran los estudiantes peruanos es el inglés, y justamente por eso hoy estamos con este workshop sobre el IELTS, y la próxima semana tendremos también un workshop sobre el TOEFL. ¿Cómo reducir mi búsqueda, no? Porque son 214 maestrías, entonces yo puedo usar los filtros que están a la izquierda. Prefiero el Field of Study y escogen, ¿no? Digamos, Economic Science o, digamos, el campo de estudio que sea, ¿no? de su interés. Hago Close y el filtro, buscar el filtro. ¿Okay? Entonces veamos que, por ejemplo, yo ya apliqué, ¿no? un filtro y tengo ya solo 18 programas. Entonces esos 18 yo los comparo, ¿okay? Entro a cada link, cada enlace, de preferencia estos de aquí, ¿no? Estos son los enlaces que van directamente a la página de la maestría y ahí pueden ver los requisitos, las fechas de postulación, toda la postulación es en línea y solo a través de estas páginas. Como son tantas, nosotros no tenemos información específica de cada una. Se recomienda que ustedes consulten muy bien este catálogo. ¿Okay? para estar más informados. También les recomiendo seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales, si aún no lo están haciendo. Tenemos una fanpage, Amigos Erasmus Perú, y aquí nosotros compartimos todos los webinars que hacemos, inclusive las grabaciones de los webinars si no lograron conectarse. Bien, ahora yo voy a presentar a Laura Pisani, quien amablemente nos va a hablar sobre el examen IELTS y darnos algunas recomendaciones. Ella estudió lingüística en San Marcos, luego estudió la maestría, también estudios de lenguaje en Brasil, en la PUC de Río, y acaba de terminar el doctorado en psicología en la Universidad Concordia. Ella escribe, ¿no? Ya nos va a contar su experiencia también en Canadá, en la Universidad de Concordia, pero ¿no? Para postular tuvo que dar este examen IELTS y obtener una nota alta porque iba para un estudio de doctorado. Y actualmente ella escribe papers de investigación, la tesis, artículos, ¿no? Ya todos estos documentos académicos en inglés. Actualmente también se desempeña como profesora de inglés, especializada en la preparación de los exámenes internacionales, ¿no? Especialmente en IELTS. Muchas gracias, Laura, por aceptar nuestra invitación. Te dejamos en la presentación. Voy a parar de compartir. Okay.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Ruth, for the presentation. So I was told to do this presentation in English, but let me know if that's not correct. English is good? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to introduce myself first. Thank you, Ruth. My name is Laura, and yes, I just finished my PhD at Concordia University in psychology. I have been studying in Canada for the past 5 years. And the very first step to do my PhD was to take the IELTS exam. And this exam, I study, as I imagine many of you have taken those classes at these English institutions, Británico or IPNA, Euridiomas, and Católica Idiomas. I studied at all of them, and I think they were really good at giving me the basis for English. And then once I kind of reached a good level of English, I went and had either private lessons, or I went and took classes that were very specific for the IELTS. But Ruth said something that is very, very, very important, that even though you may take a class for the IELTS or for the TOEFL or for an exam, it is important that you know English, because that is the only way in which you are going to understand your classes. Because imagine you only pass the exam, and then if there was no such exam, you would go to classes, and then you would not understand your professor or your colleagues, and then you wouldn't be able to write. So that's very, very important. So for Canadian universities, the IELTS is an exam that I believe is mandatory for all universities. Every single university in Canada will ask you for the IELTS, because they need to guarantee that you are fluent in English. What changes among Canadian universities is the score that they are going to ask you. So the IELTS is up to 9. Some universities in Canada will ask you just for a 6. Some of them will say it's 6.5, 7, 7.5, depending on the university's own requirements. So you have to go to the university you want to apply and check their own requirements. Okay, so that's about, if you have any question regarding master's or PhD or programs, you can let me know in the chat. So my first question to you guys would be, why do you wanna take the IELTS exam? What program are you interested? Are you interested to go to the United States? Maybe let me know in the chat. I want to go to the United States. Do you want to take apply to the Erasmus scholarship, as Ruth has explained in the first part? Are you interested in going to Europe? Do you want to go to Canada? Let me know in the chat, so to have an idea of where people are going. What do you guys want?
I think the chat is disabled, Laura.
No, I'm seeing the responses.
Okay, great. Okay, now I can see it now. Great.
That way also I know that you understand what I'm saying. So I want to see your participation. Okay, a lot of people want to go to Europe. They loved Ruth's presentation. It was really good. Also, I think that was the way Ruth went to Ruth did her master's in Portugal, but was it with Erasmus?
Yeah, it was the Erasmus scholarship.
Okay. So people want to go to the UK. A lot of people want to go to Europe. People are debating. Europe is very, very popular, I see. Well, Europe is just wonderful. I love Europe. And, I actually think that something that a lot of people should do is just go into the internet and write and find whatever topic of research they want to do and look for universities. A lot of universities have opportunities that they don't publish like in big websites, that they just keep on their own little mailing list or website. So you can also check, because there are a lot of opportunities. So, okay, so we have a lot of Europe. We have just one Canada, 2 Canadas. I've heard that Canada is becoming very popular. When I applied, I didn't even know what Canada was. I applied like 6 years ago. And okay, well, I'm very happy to know that people want to go abroad. I think it's fantastic to have that experience. And yeah, so let's talk about a little bit about the IELTS exam. I'm going to share my screen, and I don't know if you know this website. Okay, I don't know if you know this website, but I love this website because it gives you all the information you need to know about the IELTS exam. So if you don't know, make sure that you always have this website in hand. Is takeielts.britishcouncil.org. So the IELTS exam, there are 2 main exams, and one is academic and one is general training. You need to make sure which one is the one that your university requires, because even though you're going to apply to something that is academic, most universities accept the general training. The only difference, the structure is the same. The only difference is related to the topics that you will be given to. And I'm going to explain this a little bit more when we go through the 4 skills. So there in the exam, there are 4 skills that you're going to be tested on. These are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Normally, the exam is taken in 2 different days. One day you're going to do the listening, the reading, and the writing. And then you have an appointment, because you have to have a specialist or an English tester that is going to do your interview for the speaking part. So the listening part has 40 questions, and these 40 questions should be answered in 30 minutes. You have one piece of paper, and in this piece of paper, you're going to have questions. These questions are of different types. First, you're going to be listening to a recording, and this test has different parts also. I'm going to show you, you can practice here. I'm going to show you kind of like how the practice is. So the listening part has 4 parts. In the first part, you have an audio that lasts about between 5 or 7 minutes. After you listen to this audio that normally is about everyday activities, you're gonna be given some time to read these questions. You're given some time to read these questions, and then you have to complete the information in them. One tip that is very important is that while you are listening to the audio, you need to start writing, because you can only listen to the audio, to the recording one time. So it is important that you pay attention and that in advance you read these sentences so that you are ready to know what they are going to ask for. After that, after the first 5 questions, they will give you more time for you to read a table, and then you have to complete information. The purpose of this part of the exam is that, one, you're able to understand everyday conversations, and number two, that you're able to identify very, very precise information. Precise information such as the price or something, or the name of a city, or if someone is spelling something, you are able to write it down. After the first part, you have the second part, of course. In the second part, you have normally more than one person speaking. Like you may have like a dialogue or just 2 people speaking maybe, and you have to complete, again, different type of questions. The questions can be, for instance, completing something, or the question can be assigning one sentence to each of the counselors. So if there are 3 counselors, you see 4 statements, you have to say, okay, this statement belongs to this first counselor. But the type of content can vary a lot. So that's the second part. You will see multiple people talking, and you have to be able to distinguish who is speaking. The third part, in the third part, you again have multiple people speaking, and you need to kind of complete a dialogue with a few questions. The last part is a monologue, just one person speaking, and it's normally about, depending on the type of test you take, it can be something very academic, something a bit more like a research-like, and then you have to comment on it or just respond to a few different questions. So each of these sections in the listening part takes about 8 minutes. So because all 4 parts take 30 minutes, and right after you have 30 minutes have passed, you will be given 10 minutes so that you can transport your answers from the paper to an answering sheet. So there is an answering sheet that is separated, and you have 10 minutes to do your answers in there. So just to clarify, yes, they give you a few seconds to read the questions before. So you start by saying, the person starts by saying something like, well, now, before we start, you have a few seconds to read the questions, and then we will start with the audio. So they give you a section of the audio. After that, they say, okay, now we're going to stop, and you have more time to read the following set of questions, because every single audio is divided into questions. So you have for here, with one audio, you have from 31 to 35. You do that, and then the audio stops. You have time to respond, and then you have extra time to read this in advance so that you know what's going to happen. So that's the listening part. What's my opinion about the audios? I think they are very, whoever speaks, they always speak very clearly. They don't speak like they speak on the street. They speak a little bit more well articulated and pronounced so that you can understand. And I believe most people, if not all, is with a slight British accent. but it's very good. It's very, very standard British, very neutral. So I find it very understandable. So if you have any question about the listening part, you can let me know. I'm gonna start checking for the second section. I went too far. So in the meantime, I'm going to answer to the questions. I have a few questions on the chat, and feel free to leave questions in the chat if you want. So there is a question about which ability is, which component is harder or is the hardest. And that is very personal. I think that's the skills, they don't depend on the actual exam, but they are they change according to your own abilities. For me, for instance, I think the easiest part is speaking, because I think that even if I don't know the answer, I can make something up in my head, and I'm very good at improvising an answer. So for me, speaking is the easiest. But for other people, they may get nervous because talking to someone may be nerve-wracking or something. So they are very shy. And for them, maybe speaking is the hardest. For me, the hardest would be maybe listening, because I have a very bad memory. So if I listen to an audio and I don't respond right away, I probably forgot what was said a few minutes ago or a few seconds ago. So I'm very forgetful. So for me, the hardest is listening. But maybe you have such a good memory and you're very good at listening. So maybe for you, that's easy. So this is going to depend, and you're going to figure out which one is your best and your worst once you are in the training. Any other questions? Happy to respond. Okay, so the second part is the reading part, and everything happens immediately, one after the other one. So you have no time to breathe. So the reading takes 1 hour. 1 hour, and you have 40 questions. And the type of questions you have are different depending on whether it's an academic or a general. Just the content changes. The one that is academic may have a little, some passages or paragraph that are from academic journals. So like research, it can be biology, it can be neuroscience or something like that. Whereas general training, they are more from magazines, everyday topics, newspapers. It has 3 sections. So in all sections are very similar. In the first section, section, you have a text. A text are not always stories. Text can be text from everyday life or text that you would receive at your job, different type of test. And in those tests, you will have some questions. In this case, you have to write a full word. And questions 9 to 11, you have different type of text. In this case, is they are giving you precise information with times, prices, and they are asking you to just write true, false, or information is not given. And then you have the third part. In this third part, you have longer paragraphs, and they ask you sometimes to give, they can ask you to give a title to the paragraph, or they ask you in which paragraph you can find this type of information. And they give you kind of information, and you have to write whether it was in paragraph G or in paragraph H, for instance. And sometimes they ask you to complete a text that is empty. You have to complete it from the text that you read in the beginning. And these are the 3 sections, 4 questions, and it takes overall 1 hour to do. And finally, we have writing. A lot of people like this section because they can have some time to think about, and they are not talking to anyone. Is the least restricted section. So in the writing, you will have 2 assignments. And they give you 1 hour to do. And they don't time you per assignment. They give you 1 hour, but they recommend that you take 20 minutes for the first assignment and 40 minutes for the second assignment. But that's up to you. You are the one who decides that. So for the first task, the first task is a shorter kind of, it's not an essay, it's more of a letter, a very short letter with around 150 words. So that would be, I don't know, half a page, depending on how you write, but around half a page. And the topic is normally a very informal topic related to family or friends. In this case, for instance, in this task, they are asking, they're telling the person, so the student, that a friend has agreed to look after their house and pet while the person is on holiday. Write a letter to your friend. They give you precise information that you have to include in your letter. And it's very, very, very important that you follow the instructions. So give contact detail for when you are away. So for instance, any contact information that is important for your friend to know. Maybe your own contact information. For instance, if there is any emergency, know that I will be at this address and you can call me right away, this number. Give instruction about how you care for your pet. So remember that my pet, Fluffy, always needs to have water on its fountain, or always needs to be, I don't know about animals, but always need to be pet in the head before going to sleep, or cannot eat chocolate, or things like that. So give the person instructions. And describe other household duties you would like your friend to undertake. So for instance, and please, if you can, I don't know, wash the dishes I would appreciate that because I forgot to wash the dishes before I went to my trip or went away. Please feel free to cook dinner for you and grab anything that is on the fridge. And you is a very informal letter saying something like dear, and then you write the name of the person. So that's the first task, and that should take you around 20 minutes. So the second one is a bit more formal, a bit more academic. Let me read this to you. Some people believe that teaching children at home is best for a child's development, while others think that it is important for children to go to school. So normally they will give you a topic of debate. What's best for children to go to school or to be homeschooled? And you have to give your opinion. And they are giving you precise instructions. So first you discuss the advantages, what is good about both methods, and then you give your own opinion. So I think, for instance, teaching children at home has the advantage that there is no commute, is less expensive. Children won't be bullied. You can think of advantages. While going to school helps children to socialize, help children to be around peers of similar age, and has professors or teachers that are specialized in every subject. In my opinion, going to school is the best option because, and then you have to give your reasoning, or from my experience, or as far as I know, always use those expressions. In my opinion, as far as I know, on one hand, on the other hand, however, so try to always use connectors. They are very, very important. And you have to write at least 250 words. That is around one full page. But again, the length in pages depends on your writing. But make sure that you count your words, okay? It is very important. So to respond a few of the questions from the chat, yes, the language may change from task 1 to task 2. So is the same as every day when you talk to your friends, you use different vocabulary than when you talk to a professor, for instance. So you can employ some jargon is absolutely accepted to as long as you are not vulgar. I think you can employ very casual, informal language. Whereas in task 2, you need to be more neutral with the language you are going to use. And finally, my favorite section is the speaking part. Okay, so the speaking part, as far as I know, you will make an appointment, and then you will go to, I think it happens in the actual Británico, and you go there, you wait for a little bit, and then you have your appointment, and the whole exam takes 15 minutes, the speaking part. in this part, in the interview, you speak to someone who is a native speaker of English, normally from somewhere in the UK. Part one is very informal part where they are going to ask you a few questions that are very regular questions, nothing too deep. But for every single speaking test, they are going to choose one topic, and part 1, 2, and 3 are going to be about the same topic.
Sí, ahora sí lo tengo. Ahora sí lo llevo. Siempre. En la noche, como ya he dicho. En la noche, claro.
I don't know how to
Pero
with you. Okay. Okay. So it's about one topic. Let's say, for instance, I think in this case, the topic is hometowns or villages. So they're going to start by asking you questions about that. So they may ask you some questions like, tell me where are you from? Tell me about that. I ask you, I think, 3 questions. Depending on the person who's going to take the examination, they're going to, what it says, listen. Oh, this is just a test. Just a few questions. This part just takes 5 minutes. They ask you about 3 questions. It can be more, depending on, I don't know, depending on the person. And it's about 1 or 2 topics in general. So it could be something like, let's talk about accommodations. Tell me about the kind of accommodation you live in. How long have you lived there? So these are very quick questions that you are supposed to answer with just 1 or 2 sentences. Then we have the second part. In the second part, they will give you a card with some instructions, and you have 1 minute to look at the card, and then you have to speak for about 3 minutes. So for instance, they'll give you a card. It says, describe something you own which is very important to you. And you should say where you got it from, how long have you had it, what you use it for, and why is it important to you. You have 1 minute. So a few tips in this part. One of them is, I know it is very hard to come up with an answer in just 1 minute. You don't have a lot of time to prepare. So you would have to do a lot of thinking on the spot. A lot of people use a lot of while they are thinking. And that is perfectly understandable, because that kind of helps you to fill spaces and think faster. My advice would be that it is better to speak slower, or just to make pauses, fill pauses with silence, rather than using because this seems that you are not being very confident. So for instance, let's say that I was asked this, and I have to speak slow. I'll show you 2 options, okay? Option number 1. I'm gonna talk about my necklace. My necklace. I got it from my mom. I use it for every day. I wear it every day. It's important to me because it was very special to my mom. Versus, something that is very important to me is my necklace. I have had it for 10 years and I use it for everyday wear. It is important to me because it belonged to my mom. So even though both were kind of slow, both were not very fluent, the second one may have sounded more confident because I wasn't adding the, I'm thinking. So try to just be calm, and don't, pauses are okay as long as you don't fill them with, I don't know, because that may give the idea that you are really nervous. So that's the first thing. It is possible that they ask you some follow-up questions for 1 minute, very short questions. And the third part, they ask you, again, questions about the topic. And these questions are more for you to think and reflect upon. What kind of things give status to people in your country? And what have things changed since your parents' time? So it is possible that they ask you questions that you have never thought about. Questions that even in Spanish, you would be like, oh my God, I have no idea. Because I remember that when I took my exam, they asked me, with what character from history do you relate the most? Or which character from history do you identify with? And for me, I have never thought about that. Never in my life. So I was like, oh my God, I have no idea in my mind. But in the meantime, for the professor or the instructor that was taking my exam, I think I said something like, oh wow, that's a very interesting question. I have never thought about that. But if I had to pick someone from history that I relate with, I think it would be Frida Kahlo. I don't relate to Frida Kahlo whatsoever, but that was the first name that popped into my mind. Because I think she was very resilient and she was very courageous and she was very brave for her time. I don't know if she was those things. What I want to say is that it is okay to lie. Actually, I would advise you to be creative and to lie, because I think that's the only way in which you can show off how well you speak English. So be creative. Questions sometimes are very weird. A friend of mine was asked, when was the last time you ate cake? And that is a question that one can answer with one word or two words, last month. But you need to be very creative and pull some topics. So my friend who was very good at English, he said something like, oh, that's very interesting, because the last time I ate cake was 2 days ago. It was my friend's party. He's from Hungary, and we have known each other for so many years, and we both love cake. So I decided to make a cake myself. I made carrot cake. And it was so interesting because when I was making the cake, I realized that I don't have carrots, that I didn't have carrots. And so I had to go to the store. So you can make a full, huge answer from a very simple question. So don't be afraid to lie. Don't be afraid to be very creative. And just try to look confident. It's better to speak slow than to have to fill your pauses with these interjections. Oh. So yeah, that's it. And try to be as relaxed as you can. Before you go in, you give a full breath. You take a full breath, and you relax. And I'm if you train enough and if you do the work, I am sure this is not a very hard exam, and I'm sure you will get the score that you need. So those are the 4 sections in the IELTS. If you have any questions, you can let me know. If not, I think Ruth still has some information.
Can I share my screen, please?
Absolutely.
Bien. Laura, ella realiza frecuentemente cursos de preparación y nos informa que tiene algunas vacantes disponibles para estudiar en diciembre, ¿no? Esos son los horarios. Pueden ver de lunes a viernes, de frecuencia interdiaria y también los fines de semana. Laura, tenemos estos horarios, ¿cierto? Que hay más disponibilidad de tiempo de los estudiantes peruanos, ¿no? La mayoría trabaja y ya se libera por las noches. Bien, pueden inscribirse. Voy a pasar el link en el chat. Ya lo hice, creo, pero vamos a ver nuevamente. Y es todo. Okay. Si tienen más preguntas para Laura, pueden aprovechar, ¿okay? en el chat o levantar la mano. ¿Okay? Nos quedan unos 2 minutos. Muchas gracias por su participación. Muchas gracias, Laura, por acompañarnos, por darnos estos tips para los postulantes que ya van a dar el examen próximamente. Una pregunta muy frecuente es si se recomienda que sea computarizado o presencial. ¿Cuál es tu recomendación personal?
Well, I'm very old school, and I like it better in person, because all my whole life I've been doing exams in person. I feel I have more control with it. So I would prefer that. Also, sometimes you cannot rely on technology, you get nervous. So for me, in person is better, but that's something that everyone should, maybe some people are better typing than writing. So you need to think about that. But for me, in person is best. There's a question: how many months does the classes last? So these that are there, both are taught by Ruth and I. We both will be taking on these classes in these the times that you see there, and each of them is 24 hours, and normally they should be in 1 month, in the month of December. But there might be some changes. It's kind of flexible because there are a lot of events happening or holidays happening during December. So if it doesn't finish then, I think it's flexible as long as it's 24 hours, I believe.
Ok, sí. Y claro, si en esas 24 horas de clase y luego de rendir los test, ¿no? Que serían los practice tests, y tener los resultados, digamos, ¿no? Las calificaciones, se podría calcular si se necesita más tiempo, digamos, hacer otro curso, o si ya estarían listos para, ¿no? Aplicar al examen y obtener el puntaje deseado. Por eso es importante que ustedes sepan cuál es el puntaje mínimo que necesitan, ¿no? Digamos, si es 6 overall, o si es 6 en cada habilidad, o si es que 7, ya depende del puntaje requerido, el tiempo de las clases. ¿Okay? Bien, muchas gracias por su participación. Gracias, Laura, nuevamente por estar con nosotros. Y nos vemos en el próximo workshop sobre el TOEFL, que nos toca la próxima semana. ¿Okay? Pero será en horario de la tarde. Bien, nos vemos.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Take care.